Because the coaching industry is so new, it's no surprise that most people assume they need a financial advisor instead of a financial coach. In fact, most people haven't even heard of a financial coach. I've been a financial coach since 2015, and many people have called me a financial advisor, which I'm not, and sought services outside of my wheelhouse. That's why I'm so excited to have financial advisor Grace Kilgore on the show today. Grace and I are going to talk about the differences between a financial coach and a financial advisor, so whoever's listening can understand the difference and seek out the right financial support. Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Raya Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Now, Grace and I met on Instagram, gotta love social media, and we actually took it a step further and connected over a Zoom call just to get to know each other, which was wonderful. I learned that Grace is a licensed financial advisor who lives in Florida, but can provide services in multiple states. Grace helps people build wealth through investment strategies and financial vehicles. She also helps people who are looking to break into the financial sector. Grace is a wife and mom of 3 and shares a look at her life along with amazing advice on her social media platforms, which I will be sure to share in the show notes. So Grace, hi, welcome.
Hi.
So happy to have you.
Oh my gosh, I have been looking forward to this for a long time. So thank you so much for having me on your amazing podcast.
Oh, you're so sweet. Now, can we maybe start with you just sharing a little bit about yourself and how you became a financial advisor? And I'm curious if that was like what you always wanted to do.
Yeah. So, like you said, I'm from Florida, born and raised. So, I'm one of those crazy Floridians that you hear about. I grew up with a big family, 5 brothers, 1 sister, and married to the guy that I met at church camp. So, we've been married for the last 10 years. We have 3 amazing kids under 5 years old. So, it's a crazy season of life. My degree is actually in social work, and my background is in restaurant management.
Whoa.
Weird. I know, right? And I never wanted to be in business, like never. I wanted to have a family and a career, but after my social work career didn't really go the way that I thought it would, which happens to a lot of people, unfortunately, I found myself just being really open and creative to a new career. So I was working at a restaurant, and a friend of mine from college was expanding his office, and I saw a post on Facebook. Gotta love social media, right? And I specifically remember the post that said something like looking for manpower and women power would be even better. And I was really intrigued. So I reached out to him to see like how had he gone from social work to financial services? Like how does Mother Teresa turn into Wolf on Wall Street? You know, like how does those two things converge? And so when I realized it was pretty much like financial social work, helping people get connected to resources and education, but just in the financial arena, it really clicked. And I just continued to learn. And the more I learned, the more I liked it. And I quit my job a couple months later and became his office manager because he was opening an office and needed some back office support as well. So that allowed me to really learn the back office while getting my licenses and, learning the business as a whole.
Wow, that's kind of a crazy way to end up where you are. I love when life kind of takes us a different route than what we planned.
I know. I remember in my 2nd grade yearbook, it documented what everybody said they wanted to be when they grow up. And I remember writing down a cheerleader, which is a completely unrealistic thing to be when you grow up. That's what I really feel like I am. Like I cheerlead people, whether it's my team or whether it's my clients, really coming alongside of people and encouraging them because ultimately like it's their money, it's their life, like they're on the field of their own life. And I just come alongside of them to cheer them on.
I love that. It's almost like little Grace knew even though she didn't know.
I know. I feel really blessed and lucky.
Now, what was the process like for you to become a financial advisor? Are there like certifications and licenses and tests and things like that? How did that process go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I may get a little nuanced here or in the weeds, but you have to understand I knew nothing about, I mean, I knew very little about finances, but zero about the financial industry. And most people think you need to have a bachelor's degree in finances or accounting, and you really don't. What you do need is licenses and a company to sponsor or vouch for you. There are some licenses that you can get on your own, but to go out and get the licenses without a company helping you with the process can sometimes be a waste of time and money and can be really frustrating because there's so much red tape that you have to go through. So the company that I work with and the process may be different than the industry, but the steps are similar. So I first took my state of Florida life insurance license. That really serves as the foundation license. And then I went and got my Series 6 investment license. This is a federal license. And then these two licenses kind of pack a punch when it comes to building a good client base and income because you have the defense for the life insurance and you have the offense for the investments. And then from there, I just built my portfolio of licenses. I continued and got my Series 63. That's an investment license that allows me to do business in all 50 states. My Series 26, which allows me to open my own office. So it legally allows me to supervise other people who have their Series 6. And then my Series 65, which is the actual license that gives you the designation of a financial advisor. And that comes with a whole new way to service and advise clients, as well as what's called a fiduciary responsibility. It's legally, I have to do what's right for the client and not what's best for my bottom line or my pocketbook. So this was all over the course of many years, adding more and more licenses. I was also expanding my own team to help them get licensed because I love helping clients, but I also understand that, I'm a mom and I'm busy. So if I can duplicate myself and build up an advisory team, I can better serve my own family as well as better serve my client base as well.
Oh, I mean, for someone who didn't want to get into business, you're a savvy businesswoman.
I just was a student. When I started the business, I thought, well, everybody had been encouraging me to get my master's degree in social work, but I always thought I'd rather have a bachelor's degree with experience than a master's degree with no experience. And so I really value the process of learning and implementing. So not just sitting on the sidelines and learning, but actually implementing at the same exact time as learning. And so as I continued to do that, it was like, man, there's so much to learn and everything builds upon each other and things sometimes are changing. So it's not just the same static boring thing every day. Every person is different and it presents new challenges. And I know with social work, it took me a really long time to feel like I was making a difference in somebody's life, kind of like a teacher. You work really hard and you wonder if you're doing the right thing for your students, and you have to wait 20 years to come back and say, hey, you were like the best teacher. So it's nice to get that instant gratification of knowing that I really helped a client.
I love that. I love hearing that. And you sound like someone who takes it serious, right? I mean, some of those licenses that you mentioned, I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's you going above and beyond, right? Like there are probably extras in there that are not necessary for you to do the work you do, but you went and obtained them anyways.
Yeah. And on top of that, I have my mortgage license as well. So not that I do a lot of mortgages or care to do a lot of mortgages, but to be able to sit down with somebody and provide a wide variety of knowledge. And even if I do refer that specific mortgage business to a colleague, at least I have that knowledge and value that I can bring to my client.
Definitely. I very much appreciate that about you, Grace. Now, I think there is a stigma that most financial advisors, investment advisors are rich white men, old or young, right? Like old or
Yeah,
young, don't
majority of the industry.
right. And while I think that we are moving in the right direction as a society, like I think we're starting to see more diversity in the finance industry, there's still a ways to go. So, how do you feel about being a woman in a male dominated industry? And have you had any concerns or issues that have come up in your time in the financial space?
Yeah, I'll caveat this with I've had a very positive and encouraging experience. You mentioned you've been a financial coach since 2015. I also started in 2015.
Oh,
So I got my very first license 420 of 2015. I'll never forget it because it was 420. It's an easy date to remember. And I've had a very, like I said, just positive and encouraging experience. And I talk to a lot of women in the industry that have not. And they are still looking for their place. They are playing maybe second fiddle to the guy that's been there forever, who said he's going to sell his book of business to them, or have said that you're the next one up and coming. And they just empty promises a lot of times. And I mean, our company specifically, women make up nearly 63% of all licensed representatives, not of the financial advisors, but of some sort of financial professional license, and about 34% of financial advisors running our own office. So, also with five brothers in a very dominant male household, I'm no stranger to being around men. And I really do enjoy surprising people. So, I specifically remember walking into a new client. He was 85 years old, and his 50-something-year-old son was there with him, and they were there to scope me out. And here I am, a young female, walking in, having to prove myself. And I remember him saying, "Man, you sure do know a lot for a young woman." And I was like, "Yes, yes, I do." And I walked out there with a contract, right? And I also don't want to be cookie cutter to everyone else out there. Not that I want to be crazy for crazy's sake, but I don't feel like I have to compete with my male counterparts or even my female counterparts. But I will say I have struggled in the past of settling into that number two position. I think that sometimes as women, if there's a strong man in the environment, it's easy to kind of play second fiddle or to take that number two seat because you don't want to be that crazy strong female. And I enjoy helping people and supporting people. So it came naturally for me to slip into a number two role. But I think that when I started having kids and actually opened my own office, I started giving myself permission to say no to things and to really conduct my business in alignment with my priorities and my value, and realizing that I am running my own race at my speed, and I may not be the youngest or the fastest or the biggest, but I know that when I put my head on the pillow, I've done what I needed to do today. So, and I remember it was early on in my career, probably in 2015, I had joined a women's networking group, and I went to coffee with one of the mentors. She was an attorney, an older female attorney, and I was sharing about my struggles of being a young woman in the industry. And she gave me the best perspective. She said, "I would rather have a young financial advisor that would outlive me than an older one that may die before me. And then I'd have
ooh,
to find somebody else." And that was so encouraging. And I thank her to this day for just giving me that perspective of that I have value to give. And ultimately, if somebody gives you money or gives you advice that's going to put $1 million in your pocket, you don't care how old they are. If the advice is correct and the person's helping you out, people are like, whoa, they're even more surprised because they maybe weren't expecting that to come out of you.
yeah. I love that advice that she gave you. And it's so true. I mean, you wouldn't think about that, but it really makes sense. And one thing that I have found, I work for myself. So, I'm not competing with anyone within my own company, but I've found that a lot of clients who come to me say, like, "Oh my gosh, like you look like me, you sound like me, you think like me, like I want to work with you." And I feel
Yes.
like if there are more women in the financial industry, more women will be more inclined to work with those women because of the similarities. And so I just love that we are moving in that direction where women are now making more and they want to do right with their money. And now there are options for them to seek out support who understand and can help without feeling that judgment, even if, it's just self inflicted thoughts.
Right. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that people face is their own mental, maybe negative thoughts around money or worth around money. And I mean, we know women typically are going to live longer. We're going to inherit more money. And women typically will be more inclined to save money than invest it, where men are more likely to invest their money. But what happens is that puts women at risk because we're not utilizing things like compound interest and these incredible investment vehicles where we may have, like, you may be listening and you may have like thousands of dollars in your bank account, but it's just sitting there and you're thinking like, well, at least it's there and at least I have the security of it, but it's not doing anything for you other than giving you this sense of security. But security for what? For now, for later down the road. And so I think a lot of women I hear where they have money sitting on the sidelines. And if that's you, I mean, you're stalling your security in the future. Whereas something may have stopped you from speaking to a financial advisor because you didn't want to be talked down to or over. You didn't want to be made to feel like an idiot. I mean, short client story. I met with a woman who her husband had just passed away and he had been an attorney. And I just thought, surely this woman has had a financial advisor, right? Her husband's an attorney. They have properties. He did well for himself. And when I met her, she's like, my son has been bugging me to get a financial advisor. And I just not been able to feel comfortable with anybody or open up to anybody. And I met with her and her son. And I just remember there was this distinct moment in our conversations where we were going over her numbers and the amount of money she had and her financial independence number, the amount of money she needed to accumulate so she could actually retire. And when we discovered that she was already to that point where she could stop working today and be totally set the way she needed to financially, she stopped talking. She put her head down. And I remember seeing her son, and her son was like, all right, so let's talk about the other things. And I was like, hold on. I said, what's going on? Tell me about what are you thinking right now? And I just gave her the space to process and to share, where I think a male counterpart would just roll through the checklist, and where I gave her that space to really appreciate and honor her husband in the way that he had set her up, where a lot of her friends, people her age who had not had that opportunity.
I mean, that just goes to show the importance of women being in this industry, right?
Absolutely.
And there's so much more to money than just knowing what to do with it or just trying to make more of it, right? There's a lot of emotion and past experiences and memories that are tied into it. And women can empathize with those things, I think, better than men can.
Absolutely.
Now, you made a really good point about people, women, having money just kind of sitting in their checking account, and it's the sense of security, but it's only making themselves feel better, right? I mean, it's only a sense of security because they know it's there. And I've had plenty of clients in that situation where I had to work with them to shift that mental narrative to, yes, this money is sitting here and it makes you feel good because it's sitting here, but it's not doing you any favors. So slowly but surely, let's start getting it into like a high earning interest account, right, or like transition it to like an investment account. Like, let's start making it work for you. I'm really glad you called that out because I have no doubt there are people for this who are like, okay, she's talking to me.
Like, if that's you and you have $50,000 sitting in your bank account, this is your sign.
Yeah, seriously.
You work hard for that money. Right. You work hard for that money. Make sure that money's working hard for you.
Exactly. Now, speaking of that, there are people listening who are probably in that situation, and there are people listening who maybe have $50,000 worth of debt. So one thing that you and I had previously talked about was this knowledge gap just across the board between a financial advisor and a financial coach. And I would love if we could break down some of the biggest distinctions between the two. So like maybe you can start by sharing, like, in your opinion, what the differences are between a financial coach and a financial advisor.
Yeah, I was actually thinking I would love for you to go more into depth for that. I mean, because from my perspective, more of a financial coach is going to be focusing on, and we'll talk about this later, but the budgeting, getting out of debt, a lot of that money mentality, that could be the biggest block and hurdle. Organization, really the day-to-day. And I think the biggest distinction is going to be those state and federal licenses. These are highly regulated industries, and due to the lack of financial literacy as a whole, it's really easy for consumers to be taken advantage of by the wrong person. So plus we're dealing with legitimate financial products, life insurance, retirement accounts, legal documents. All of these have their own regulatory agencies, protocols, laws. I mean, all the licenses that I have I've heard it's the equivalent of a law degree. Plus, a financial advisor may have a little bit more awareness of the different investment vehicles that you could take advantage of based on your specific situations. They can all be very different and a lot of if this, then that. And I think a financial advisor can help navigate that a little better.
I love that you put that perspective in there because someone who is not familiar with a financial advisor may not think like that. I consider myself a financial coach. I am a financial coach. And to me, the biggest difference between the two is a financial coach is someone who essentially sets a person up to work with a financial advisor.
I love that.
Like we're baseline. We are getting the budget set up. We're making sure you have liquid savings in case of an emergency. We're paying off your debt. We're getting you in a position where all of your ducks are in a row. So now you can start taking the money that you make and truly building wealth with it. And that's where you would transition to a financial advisor who can really walk you through those investment vehicles that can help you do just that. I would say that's kind of, in my opinion, the difference between the two. And I think most people, maybe not most people, I should take that back and say some people think they need a financial advisor because they're not aware of what a financial coach is, right? And so they may have a bad experience going to talk to someone and that advisor is like, hey, pay your debt off, get some savings and then come talk to me, right? And then they feel like they don't have any support when instead they should have started with a financial coach. So I love that we're trying to bridge that knowledge gap.
Yeah. You talking, it makes me think of somebody who wants to bake a cake. And a lot of times people will come to me and I'm like, wait, you don't have the right ingredients to bake this cake, where you are like the professional shopper, where like, hey, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to go to the grocery store with you. Let's make sure we're picking out the right eggs and like they make sure we're picking out the right quality flour. And let's make sure we get all of our ingredients right. And then let me pass you on to a financial advisor. And now you have the right ingredients, the right amount of ingredients. And then somebody like Grace or a financial advisor is going to say, hey, now that you have the right ingredients, let me show you how to bake a cake based on your goals and your values.
Yes, I think that's a great way to describe it. So hopefully those who are listening now have a better idea. But since you are the financial advisor, I would love to kind of hear from you, like, what qualifiers would you look for when assessing if someone would be a good fit for you as a client, right? So someone's coming to you and they don't know the difference between a coach or an advisor, but like, what would you look for? What would you assess to qualify someone to work with you or be ready to work with you?
Yeah. And I don't know if you want like specific numbers because that's not really how I run my business. Yeah. I mean, obviously there are things like debt to income ratio and what is your budget and what is that excess amount of money that you can budget for it. But in my opinion, a big role of a financial advisor is to help you avoid financial mistakes. So whether you are out shopping for a financial advisor or I'm looking at you as a potential client, really, we're looking at the potential to build trust with each other. So I can help you not only benefit from all the positives of working together and of investing and building a financial plan, but also to avoid mistakes. So I really look at the potential to be someone's financial advisor and ask myself, hey, am I the right person that can keep them on the right path and help them avoid those potential mistakes in the future? Hey, is this person open and willing to learn, to partner together, but ultimately take ownership of their own journey? I think that, yes, the numbers, we could dive into that, but I think it's really, hey, is there a connection of like a team mentality? Like, I am not a superhero that's going to come in and save the day. You're the superhero and I'm your sidekick. And so like, hey, is that superhero sidekick relationship a good one? Because if I'm sitting down with you and you're hesitant and you're abrasive and you're standoffish, it's going to be very hard for me to help you avoid mistakes. And so I think it's more of a, hey, is there a potential to build trust in a true relationship here, is where I mainly focus.
Got a money question you want me to answer on the podcast? I'm starting a new segment on the show called City Girl Solutions, where I answer any questions you have for me. Money, business, life, you name it. Submit your questions at citygirlsavings.com/QA and get your question answered by me in a future episode. And did you know that we have so many free money resources on our blog, Instagram, and TikTok channels? Find us across the internet at City Girl Savings. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. When you're working with someone from a financial perspective, I mean, there has to be trust on both sides. But what I was really trying to get a gauge on is if someone came to you and let's say they had debt or they didn't have disposable income or they don't have any type of retirement plans or brokerage accounts, like would that person be a fit? And I understand every situation is going to be different, but
Yeah.
are there certain distinctions that you could make when someone is reaching out to you for services?
Yeah. Well, even in just talking about like when would somebody need a financial coach or a financial advisor, can I give you like two or three examples of like
Yeah,
differentiation? So, like a tale of three clients. How about that? Right.
sounds
So,
good.
let's say this client, her name is Maddie. Okay. And these are real life clients of mine, but I changed their names. Okay. So, real life examples, right? So, Maddie, she reached out to me. She was going through divorce. She was overspending on her budget. She had recently moved to an area of the country that was very expensive. Her focus was really getting through the divorce and you kind of just whole. Like, I'm going through this divorce. It's a very survival mentality. She really needed help navigating day to day decisions, even like legal decisions with attorneys. And so she needed help with the day to day, right now financial decisions of what do I do with my budget to make things stretch and work. And she really needed that more personal accountability. So when I sat down with her, I was like, what kind of relationship would you expect of me? And she was like, oh, I want like a hardcore accountability. And that's not somebody that is ready for me to work with them, right? She was at least a year away from needing my help. I'm not in the business of hardcore day to day accountability. That's really where your specialty is, where somebody who says, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to get past my mental hurdles. I need somebody with some sort of baseline with some ingredients. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, that helps a lot. So essentially someone who really like doesn't have control of their budget, is not really in control of their spending, hasn't gotten to a place where they're stable and steady in those areas. That's more so when a coach could come in and get them where they need to be.
Absolutely, because there's no point in us investing time and opening an investment account if next month or 2 months from now you're calling me liquidating it. When we open investment accounts, we say, hey, investing is important, but if money is going into this that you need to pay day to day expenses, this is not the right time to be investing. You need a coach.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah. So client number two, right? I'm going to call her name Emily. This is somebody who is single, young. Emily's a realtor and a nanny, and she has consistent income, but it fluctuates. And she wanted to make sure she's doing the right thing with her money. She was saving up to buy a house. She values traveling. She was almost done paying off her student loans and her car. She was very diligent to doing that. Very independent, and she was just really wanting guidance on how to maximize her income and making sure she was doing the right thing when it comes to investing. So, really getting the proper understanding of her situation, goals, and values, what she could budget for. I mean, she's one of my favorite clients because she takes ownership of her journey. I mean, it's not that she's got $1 million, but her mindset is forward thinking and she's open to an advisor to help guide big planning with step-by-step solutions and automation. Right.
Okay, so someone like Emily would be a good fit for a financial advisor then.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, she has a baseline. She has a good money mentality. She has money and she just doesn't want to make the wrong decisions with it. And she's moving forward. I think where Maddie was very stuck in where she is and kind of had her blinders on, Emily is very forward thinking, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm saving this, I'm already driving the car. I want to make sure that I'm going the right speed and I'm not going to hit any bumps or fly off a cliff.
Yeah. Okay, that's another great example. Okay.
Yes. And then the third client, I mean, this is somebody, and this is my favorite type of client. We're going to say her name is Lisa. She's married with 3 kids. She homeschools and she controls the finances. She's like the money mom of her family, right? And her husband owns a business. So they have life insurance from a couple of years ago, but haven't really looked at it since they had their kids. They had two old 401ks from past jobs that they get statements from, but we're just shoving it in the bottom drawer. They talk about wanting to save money for their kids and investing, but don't really know how to, because he doesn't have access to a 401k because he runs a small business. So this person, I think, is ready for a financial advisor because they already have those ingredients. They have the desire, and now it's turned into something like legacy focused for them. I want to do for my kids what wasn't done for me. I want to set my kids up right. And there could be a lot of frustration, a lot of desire because hey, I'm a middle income family and I don't know who to talk to. And we have these things, but I don't know how they all work together. And they don't really have a big picture plan with actionable steps that a financial advisor can advise and guide them on. So they have several financial decisions to make over the course of the next couple decades, right? With the future of housing, kids, career. So a financial advisor can really be a valued member of their financial team that could help them not only make gains, but avoid those major and minor financial mishaps.
I think that was another great example. And I feel like the biggest kind of takeaway from that example is like the legacy building, right? Like we have wealth building, which was Emily. She wanted to build wealth for herself,
Right.
make sure she was like on the right track. And here we have Lisa, who is like, okay, like I'm a little bit older, like I'm established. Let me build a legacy for my kids. And so at that point, Lisa's ready for an advisor. Now, one thing I just want your opinion on, debt. Let's say Emily had all those qualities, but she had a lot of unsecured debt. So like credit card debt, personal loans. Where does that play a role in how you either work with clients or advise your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that with high interest, unsecured debt like that, it siphons your money for the rest of your life unless you get a hold of it. I mean, you sit down with clients all the time. It's the first time they've looked at their statements. And I'm sorry, this is a 27% APR interest rate. Like, no matter how much you invest, no matter the greatest financial advisor in the world, nobody's going to get you a 27% rate of return every year. So it's like you're in a boat and the water's coming at you at 27 miles an hour. You have to be rowing at least 27 mile an hour, right? You have to be, so to be investing with so much of that debt and that type of debt, it could be kind of foolish. And so I think, if Emily was like that, then she wouldn't really have those ingredients yet because her money mentality wouldn't be there because she would just be like, oh, I have all this debt. So she would be in a totally different position. And I would say, hey, let's focus on this because I'm good, but nobody's that good, right? You got to get this under control because the debt is not a manifestation, but it is a representation of what's going on the inside of your money mentality. So even if that debt was wiped away with a magic wand, she may not be ready for me yet because she hasn't fixed the money mentality that she has.
I mean, Grace, you were like speaking to my soul, like so many things you said there. I mean, like first and foremost, like 27% interest that you're paying out, right? Like if you have a 27% interest rate on your credit cards and your carrying balances, you are paying that out to the lender. So you're not going to see that type of return on your investment. So it makes sense to focus your energy on knocking that debt out. Like that's, I think, a given. And I think you made such a great point when you said like, what if, you come into some extra money and you get to wipe your debt out and you start at zero? But if you haven't fixed the mentality, the spending behaviors, the limiting beliefs that got you into debt in the first place, you're going to end up right back there. And I'm speaking from my own experience, number one. And number two, I've had clients be in that situation where they're like, I was able to pay my debt off, but I got right back into it. So I think you make such a good point there. So shifting gears just a little bit, a lot of clients that I work with aren't necessarily ready financially for a financial advisor, but they may be ready to start investing on a small scale. So in those situations, I like to recommend platforms like Betterment, Public, Robinhood, those kind of robo advisors, kind of easy to understand platforms. What are your thoughts on those types of platforms?
Well, I'll first say just a self boosting, I don't know, whatever it's called. But I work with clients whether they're investing $25 a month or $25 million. So I'm really grateful I work with a company and on a platform that even if you have $25, you can still have access to a quality financial advisor. But I mean, you're exactly right. They are great places to start. And I will say that most people think that wealth is determined by investment performance. Like people think, well, if I can get mutual fund A over here and do it on my own and not pay a fee versus I can or do mutual fund A with you and pay a fee, like why does it matter? Like why would I pay why would I pay a sales charge or why would I pay an advisory fee? But the reality is wealth isn't determined by investment performance. Wealth is most often determined by investor behavior. Right? Investor behavior is the single greatest differentiation of return, right? The critical issue is what you do or avoid doing, right? And so, hey, do you figure out how much it will take for you to make your financial dreams a reality, right? Do you make a lifetime investment plan with reasonable assurance the achievement of your goals will happen? Like, do you fund that plan with the right kind of investments as opposed to like the illusion of the best mutual funds? Like, do you discipline yourself not to switch funds in whatever's hot at the moment? And like, do you never lose faith in the plan regardless of the bear market, the bull market, the sky is falling, right? Because I think no matter what time in history you go, you look at the front of Times Magazine and it's doom and gloom, right? This is the financial crisis that's going to ruin us, right? But we've always bounced back. And I think a lot of times, just like what you said, that money mentality is very emotional. And if you're doing it on your own, it can be very hard to control those emotions. And I'll tell you another client story of Andrew. Actual client, different name, right? So Andrew became my client after he was really frustrated about the low returns he was getting from his self-directed IRA that he set up kind of on an online platform, which if you have gone on and by yourself set up one of these accounts, you're already steps ahead. I mean, the fact that you've taken the time and done the research, like give yourself a pat on the back because not a lot of people are going to do that. Most people are too scared to do anything. So if you have done this, more power to you. Like, congratulations, you're doing great. But unfortunately, a lot of times people can take a misstep. So he posted about on Facebook, like, I'm so frustrated. Like, everybody's getting these returns and I'm not. And so we met up, he pulled up his account, and I saw one very common mistake that people who self-direct their investments make. He opened up a retirement account. He put cash in it and he never moved that cash into a mutual fund to be invested. And that may be jargon to a lot of you, but it's like he walked into a house and instead of going into the room that like all the investments are happening, he just sat in the hallway. Right? He never put his money in the room that the investments were. So they were just sitting in the hallway in cash, not being invested. So imagine if he would have set that up and contributed for the next 10, 20 years, only to realize his misstep down the road. And unfortunately, I see it way too often. And a lot of financial coaches that I've seen online, they are always telling people, hey, when you go on these platforms, make sure you move your cash to a loaded position, to an investment position, because that one misstep can cause you thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. And when it comes to investing time, I mean, interest in general, time is either going to work for you or it's going to work against you, right? I think Albert Einstein said compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it have it work for them, and those who don't understand it get taken advantage of by it pretty much.
Yeah, I'm so glad you explained that. And I think a big takeaway that I took from what you just shared is if you want to just familiarize yourself with investing and like, get your feet wet, like there are options available to you. But if you're really trying to leverage investing to set you up for like long-term success and reach those like true long-term goals that you may have, that's when you want to take it up a notch and work with an advisor, right? To make sure you're not making those kinds of costly mistakes. Whereas in the beginning, or, if you want to look at it as like $25 a month, I know you can work with an advisor with that, but like if you are not thinking long term, you're just thinking, well, let me just try this right now. That's an option. But when you're ready to think bigger, that's when you need to work with somebody to help you.
Yeah, because even taxation, I mean, you could open up an IRA online and not understand how it's going to be taxed in the future. And just that simple knowledge of, do I do a traditional IRA or do I do a Roth IRA, can make a massive difference now and in the future.
I totally agree. And again, if somebody is listening to this and they're ready to kind of take it up a notch, consider a financial advisor, right? Like,
Absolutely.
No one says you can't do it on your own, but like you can probably save yourself a lot of time and money by not going that route.
Absolutely.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but there are more financial vehicles than just investments, right? Managing investment portfolios. Can you share some other investment vehicles or financial vehicles that can help people build the wealth that maybe they're looking to ultimately?
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of different ones, right? And they can be confusing and they're for different purposes. But, you have money markets, which are kind of like high yield savings accounts. You have mutual funds, which is a collection of a bunch of different stocks. The average mutual fund has 150 different companies in it. You have college savings plans specifically designed for helping kids put money aside for college, which even with that has recently been expanded, which is another reason to work with a financial advisor, is because these laws are always changing. And so where a lot of people want to invest for their kids, but they just think, well, what if my kid gets all these scholarships or doesn't want to go to college, right? A rule just came out last December saying that there are some of the funds that, if go unused in a 529 college savings plan, can actually be rolled into the child when they become an adult, a Roth IRA for that child. So a lot of times the biggest holdup that people have had is now gone. And it would be nice to be with a financial advisor every 6 months or a year to be like, hey, I know you didn't want to do this before, but now with this change, you may want to. And there's annuities, which are typically for people who are a little older, they're nearing retirement. You have managed accounts or managed investments, which have a higher minimum, usually about 25,000 minimum for those. You have 401ks through your job. And I will say, just a tip, if you're starting investing on a small scale, if your employer has a 401k, make sure you're taking advantage of that, especially if there's a match. I mean, that's like doubling your money right away. So you want to take advantage of that. And then even small businesses, there are investment vehicles for small businesses, whether it's a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a solo 401k. And all of these have different contribution limits and different rules to them. And so speaking with a financial advisor to help you navigate what you qualify for is really beneficial. So, and then I talk to my clients about building a strong financial house, having a good offense, which is investments, but you don't want to take the goalie out. You need a good defense. And that defense is going to be life insurance, because even if you're investing $1,000 a month, but you pass away next month, your family gets $1,000, where you could have taken $50 and got a $500,000 life insurance policy, and that $500,000 would have paid out to your family. So you got to have a good offense, a good defense, life insurance, get out of debt, get a will in place, living will, power of attorney. I know in Florida, it's a probate state, which means things are going through probate. If I pass away without a will, the state of Florida gets to decide who raises my kids. Like, no thanks, right?
No.
So yeah, there's lots of options that could be overwhelming. And so having somebody to navigate that is crucial.
I appreciate you sharing all of those. Oftentimes, our society doesn't put a lot of emphasis on financial education. And so people probably heard half of what you said and were like, what? Like, what is that? So, I love that you brought all of those vehicles up and now people can kind of get their mental wheels turning. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we talk about groceries and then we talk about SEP IRAs. And you're like, I understood the groceries part, but what's a SEP IRA?
Yeah, like what? IRA, huh? Now, speaking of groceries, you are doing what you do as a wife and a mom of three. So, I'm curious, do you have any time management or productivity advice for women who are in situations where they're working and raising a family, or just women who want to be more productive? I would love to hear if you have any tips.
I'll keep it short because I feel like I could talk about this all day. But I found for me, I think it's about figuring out like how you work best. I found for me that I work better in small chunks of time. And I think a lot of people do, but if you give me one task and 8 hours to do it, I will take 8 hours to do that task. But if I have 30 minutes to get it done, I'm getting that sucker done quick. So I give myself a lot of deadlines and windows to complete certain tasks, to conduct interviews with potential new agents, to meet with clients. So I'll also say I have a great partner at home. My husband is so supportive, but we've also had to have conversations about hiring out help in different areas that neither of us can really fill. I'm a female led financial advisor, and where a lot of financial advisors that I know or people running financial businesses, it's the man. And then a lot of times the woman will help, but she'll do the back office, she'll do the relationship, she'll do the parties, she'll do the client events, right? And so instead of being frustrated or mad about that, it's just, hey, that's something that we have to hire out. So I have a full-time office manager that helps me with that back office things. And so we have somebody that helps us clean our house. So I think it's really figuring out how you work and running that play and staying in your lane.
I love that. And like, don't be afraid to like hire out help. One thing I personally don't do is clean my house. My boyfriend and I, like, we have cleaners and it's like the best money ever spent. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, do what works. Now, I know that you help people become advisors, right? Or
Right.
like who want to maybe get into the financial sector. So, can you talk a little bit about that and how you help? And if someone is listening and wants to get into that space, what's next for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think since COVID, the entire country's really opened up to us. I mean, when I started in 2015, I would drive an hour or two and not think twice about it because, I'm just going to go meet with a person in person. So platforms like Zoom have really helped us normalize remote advising as well as remote mentorship. And so even just bringing on agents, I have agents in California, Wisconsin, Georgia, New York, Maine, Texas. And so to be able to get licensed, go through training, and really build an advisory practice 100% on Zoom from home is like the perfect scenario for a lot of women. And I would just say, going through the licensing process, it's about being a student and figuring out, hey, is this something that piques my interest? And then finding a mentor that can guide you through that process. I mean, I went through that whole process a while ago about all the licensing. And so navigating that on your own can be really difficult.
Yeah. Okay. So finding a mentor and, that mentor doesn't have to be in person, it sounds like, right? I mean, like with Zoom and everything, if I live in Texas and someone in California really speaks to me, that could be a potential match, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am open to speaking to anyone who legally qualifies to work with me to see if this is a potential fit. I mean, most women start with me part time, so they either have their full time jobs, they're stay at home moms. I mean, I work with doctors, physical therapists, bartenders. I mean, I really help people and women especially break into the financial industry and do it in a way that's in alignment with them. Not everybody connects with the financial advisory aspect of the business. It may not be the best fit. There's a lot of licensing and technical things involved with it, but maybe on a more entry level with just helping people with the basics, maybe on the defensive side, helping them get life insurance in place, things like that. But the good thing is there's not a huge risk involved because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a great financial education for yourself. So nobody can take advantage of you when it comes to your finances.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like win-win.
Absolutely.
Now we are getting close to the end of our conversation. Is there any tips or advice or guidance you would share with someone who is listening to this and maybe they're not quite ready to work with an advisor, but they want to get there? Like any tips for them?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think be a student and taking action in one area. Don't feel like you have to be overwhelmed. I think getting your numbers in front of you, reaching out to Raya and getting that coaching and that guidance and just starting the conversation. You don't have to feel like you have to marry us on the first date, right? We don't know if you're the best fit for us, and vice versa. So I think just starting the habit now of bringing in help will only serve you throughout your life in every area, right? It's okay to be vulnerable in front of the right person, right? People say sometimes they feel naked in front of me when they talk to me. When you go to a doctor, you show them what's going on, right? You take the bandage off, right? Because it's their job to assess what is going on with the truth of what's going on. So I would also say watch what you scroll. online on social media, right? If your social media is fast fashion, celebrity gossip, I mean, that's just going in the wrong direction, right? Follow credible financial pages like Raya, myself. And if you're looking for others, figure out who we're following, right? Like if you like somebody, if you like what Raya talks about, then see who is she following because that's influencing her. And then go ahead and follow those too. You can even follow hashtags like hashtag debt-free journey. And if your feed is filled with that positive financial education, you're going to be more encouraged to make finances a priority. And if you find someone you do want to work with, reach out to them and let them know. And if you have that line open, it may provide some accountability and structure on what to work for. Like, hey, I want to work with you. Am I in the right place to work with you? Am I to the point where I need to work with you? Just get the conversation going and watch what you scroll.
Yeah, that is such great advice. I think what you consume is very powerful. And so if you're someone who is listening to this and you're afraid to look at your bank accounts and you just like, oh, you're overwhelmed with all the things, but the stuff that you're looking at online is celebrities jet setting, you're not going to be in a position to face the music. And that's what you
Right.
need to do to really get yourself in a position of success. So fantastic
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, there is a free app. It's called Unroll Me. I don't know if you ever heard of this,
Mm-mm.
where you can bulk unsubscribe from emails. So
Mm.
if you got subscribed to like 15 Ann Taylor Loft or Zara emails, you're like, I don't know when I
Bath and
subscribed
Body
for
Works
this.
annual sale.
Right?
Mm-mm.
Like you can actually go onto Unroll Me. It's a free app and you can bulk unsubscribe. You can swipe left, swipe right, and they will delete those things. So again, you don't have to have as much mental toughness if you don't have the trigger.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate the trigger, then you don't have to be as tough. It's like you're trying to lose weight and you put cupcakes in your refrigerator and you're like, I'm going to be strong. I'm just going to stare at the cupcakes, but I'm going to be strong. It's like, it's much easier. Just don't get the cupcakes, throw them away. And then you don't have that temptation.
Totally. That's such a great perspective. It's so true. It's so true. Make your life easier. Make it easier to get ahead financially.
Yeah, especially with Black Friday coming up. Girl, you do not need those Black Friday deals at 2:00 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah. Say that again. Tell
You
them,
do not
Grace.
need those Black Friday deals at 2:00 in the morning.
No, you don't. No, you don't. All right, Grace. So what's next for you in business and in life? What's next?
I love my clients. I love my book of business. I've planted my flag where I'm at. I don't plan on going anywhere. I mean, my husband is getting his licenses. So if I pass away, he can take over the business. And I'll always be expanding that aspect of my business. But I definitely have goals because what fires me up is really partnering with women who want to get started in the financial industry. So showing her that she can use her skills that she already has and channel that into helping other people with money. And you don't have to be like perfect at your finances to get started because it's a journey. I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years and I wasn't the perfect specimen of a financial subject when I started, but I was committed to growth. So, there's a system in place. There's so much flexibility. The industry is only becoming more and more available. I mean, I could go into the wall of wealth that's happening with the largest wealth transfer that's going on in the next 2 decades, $70 trillion that's being moved, where at the same time, all of these old white dudes are retiring. And so you have all of this money moving and you have an industry that is wide available. So you have like the baby boomers on one end, you have the millennials and the Gen Zers on the other end, flooding the market, having kids, making more money. I mean, business 101 is find a need and fill a need. And I've never seen a greater need in any time in history when it comes to finances. So that fires me up to show a woman that you have the skills. Let's convert them into something that you can feel really good about and make a lot of money.
Yes. Yes. Like pay it forward, right? Like put yourself in a position to help yourself, but also to help others.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap, how and where can listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so Instagram is my jam. I'll be honest, I am 33 years old, so I did not get into TikTok or Twitter or X or whatever it's called, but Instagram is my jam. So if you found this conversation valuable, drop me a DM. I'd love to meet you. And if you head over to my Instagram and grab a free copy of the book, How Money Works. And I think it's like 48 pages. It's a great ebook packed with topics that we've talked about today and more, like debt, savings, credit, tax savings, the right kind of life insurance, the 3 Ds of investing, the rule of 72. And if you're like, what is that? You just head over there and grab a free copy. I also have a copy of How Money Works for Kids. It's actually a parent guide on how to teach your kids these basic financial concepts. Because like I said, and what we were talking about with legacy is, man, how do I teach my kids these basic financial concepts if I don't even really know? So there's both of those available on my Instagram. And then plus I have Money Mom community on Facebook to connect with other women who are taking ownership of their financial journey.
I love it. I will be sure to link to those in the show notes. So anyone listening can just look at the show notes and head on over. Grace, thank you so much for this conversation. It was such a pleasure. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and me and women in finance.
Absolutely. This is so much fun. Let's do it again.
Thank you so much for tuning into City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.